A cruise ship, floating resort, luxury vacation, endless buffets, entertainment, and thousands of people packed into a confined space in the middle of the ocean. Now imagine a zombie outbreak starts on that ship. Are you trapped on a floating fortress, or are you stuck on a drifting tomb with nowhere to run? Welcome to Survival Theorem, where we analyze survival scenarios with logic, not fantasy. Today we're breaking down one of the most claustrophobic nightmare scenarios imaginable. A zombie outbreak on a cruise ship. Isolated from land, surrounded by water, packed with potential infected, and no way off. Could you actually survive? Let's find out. Let's start with why a cruise ship might seem like a decent survival location, because on paper, there are some legitimate advantages that could work in your favor. First and most obvious, isolation from the mainland. You're surrounded by ocean. Zombies can't swim. They can't operate boats. They can't reach you from land. If the outbreak is happening on shore, and you're already on a ship that's at sea, you're isolated from the primary threat. That's a massive advantage. While cities are being overrun, you're floating safely away from ground zero. Second, limited entry points. Unlike a city or even a building with multiple doors and windows, a cruise ship has controlled access. When it's at sea, there's no way on or off except by helicopter or smaller boats. You can theoretically seal the ship and prevent any external infected from boarding. That's defensible positioning. Third, abundant supplies. Cruise ships are stocked to feed thousands of people for weeks. Massive kitchens, industrial refrigerators and freezers, stockrooms full of food, bottled water, medical facilities with doctors, nurses, and supplies. Everything you need to sustain a population is already there, organized and inventoried. Fourth, fresh water generation. Modern cruise ships have desalination plants. They convert seawater into drinking water. As long as the ship has power, you have unlimited fresh water. That's huge. Water is the most critical survival resource, and you've got an infinite supply literally surrounding you. Fifth, power generation. Cruise ships have massive diesel engines and generators. They carry enough fuel for long voyages. With power, you've got lights, refrigeration, water desalination, air conditioning, communication equipment, and navigation. Power means you can maintain the ship as a functioning habitat. Sixth, defensible interior spaces. The ship is essentially a floating building with narrow corridors, stairwells that create choke points, and thousands of cabins with lockable doors. You can create defensive zones, seal off compromised sections, and control movement throughout the ship. Seventh, mobility. If things go wrong, if the ship becomes compromised, you can theoretically move to another location, sail to a different port, find an uninhabited island, relocate to international waters away from all threats. You're not locked into a single geographic position. Eighth, rescue potential. A cruise ship is visible. Helicopters can land on it. Other ships can approach. If military or government forces are establishing safe zones, a cruise ship is a legitimate asset they'd want to secure. You're more likely to be rescued on a visible ship than hiding in a basement somewhere. And finally, the ocean provides food. Fishing from a cruise ship is possible. You've got an unlimited food source literally surrounding you. As long as you have fishing equipment and knowledge, you can supplement your food stores indefinitely. So on paper, a cruise ship sounds pretty good. Isolation, supplies, water, power, mobility, and rescue potential. But here's the problem. Every single advantage I just listed comes with a fatal flaw that could kill everyone on board. Let's break down why cruise ships are actually floating death traps. Problem number one. You're trapped with thousands of people in confined spaces. Modern cruise ships carry 3,000 to 6,000 passengers plus crew. That's a small city worth of people packed into a relatively small floating space. And here's the critical question. How many of them are already infected when the outbreak starts? If the outbreak begins on land and infected people board the ship before departure, you're already compromised. If it starts on the ship because someone was bitten before boarding or contracted something that turns them, it spreads like wildfire in the confined environment. Think about the layout. Thousands of people sharing dining rooms, theaters, pools, bars, elevators, corridors. They're touching the same handrails, breathing the same recirculated air, using the same bathrooms. If even one person is infected and contagious, Hundreds get exposed within hours, thousands within a day. And here's the nightmare. You can't know who's infected in the early stages. Maybe there's an incubation period. Maybe symptoms take time to show. People are walking around, socializing, spreading the infection before anyone realizes there's a problem. By the time the first obvious zombie appears, it's already too late. The infection is everywhere. You can't quarantine effectively because you don't know who needs quarantining. You can't evacuate because you're in the middle of the ocean. You're locked in a metal box with thousands of potentially infected people and no way out. Problem number 2. Cruise ships are designed for comfort, not defense. The interior is open plan, wide corridors for passenger flow, large atriums and common areas where people congregate. Glass everywhere for aesthetic purposes. Elevators moving between decks constantly. It's designed to feel spacious and welcoming, which means it's impossible to secure. You can't seal off sections easily. There are too many access points between decks, too many corridors, too many stairs, too many elevators, too many ventilation shafts. Even if you try to create a safe zone, zombies can get in from multiple directions. And the cabins, while they lock, are not fortified. Thin doors, flimsy locks. Someone determined or a crowd of zombies pushing on a door, it's coming open. The walls are thin. You can hear everything happening in adjacent cabins. If zombies are in the corridor, you're not safe in your cabin. You're just trapped. Problem number 3. Panic and chaos destroy any chance of organization. When people realize there's a zombie outbreak on the ship, what happens? Panic. Mass panic. Thousands of terrified people running in all directions. Some trying to reach their cabins, some trying to reach lifeboats, some trying to find weapons or hide, some trying to fight. It's absolute chaos. The crew tries to maintain order, but they're outnumbered and overwhelmed. The captain gives orders, but who's listening? People are screaming, fighting, pushing. Stampedes happen. People get trampled. Injuries and casualties occur even before zombies kill anyone. And here's the reality. In that chaos, the infection spreads faster. Injured people attract zombies. Crowds become feeding grounds. The more panic, the more death, the more zombies, the more panic. It's a death spiral that happens within hours. Any hope of organized defense collapses immediately. You're not fighting as a coordinated group. You're fighting as terrified individuals, and individuals don't survive. Problem number 4. Nowhere to run. In a city, if your building gets overrun, you can flee to another location. You have options. On a cruise ship, you're contained. If zombies overrun the lower decks, you go up. If they overrun the upper decks, you go down. But eventually you run out of ship. There's nowhere else to go. You can't leave the ship. Jumping into the ocean is suicide. The water temperature, the distance from land, the currents, you'll die of hypothermia or exhaustion long before you reach safety. Even if you see land, it could be miles away. You're not swimming that. The lifeboats are an option. But here's the problem. Do you know how to launch and operate a lifeboat? Most passengers don't. The crew might, but are they alive? Are they accessible? And even if you get a lifeboat launched, where are you going? You're in the middle of the ocean with limited supplies, no navigation equipment, and no guarantee of rescue. Being trapped on the ship with zombies is bad. Being adrift in the ocean in a lifeboat is arguably worse. Either way, your options are terrible. Problem number 5. Infrastructure collapse happens fast. Cruise ships require constant maintenance to function. Engines need monitoring. Generators need fuel. Systems need operation. If the crew dies or abandons their posts, things start failing. The power goes out. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Generators run out of fuel or break down without maintenance. When the power fails, everything fails. No lights, so you're navigating a massive ship in complete darkness. No refrigeration, so all the food spoils within days. No desalination, so your water supply is whatever's in tanks, and that runs out. No air conditioning, so the interior becomes unbearably hot. No navigation equipment, so you're drifting. The ship is no longer a controlled environment. It's a floating metal box drifting in the ocean, filled with corpses and zombies, with no power and no way to sustain life. That transition happens faster than you think. Problem number 6. The ocean itself becomes a threat. Ships need to be actively piloted and maintained to remain stable and functional. If the crew is dead, and no one who knows how to operate the ship survives, the ship drifts. It could drift into shipping lanes and collide with other vessels. It could drift toward shore and run aground. It could drift into a storm and capsize. Ocean storms are deadly. If a major storm hits and the ship is adrift without power or crew to navigate through it, you're at the mercy of the weather. Waves crash over the deck. The ship rolls and pitches. People get thrown around, injured, washed overboard. The ship could take on water and sink. You survive the zombies only to drown when the ship goes down. That's not survival. That's just a slower death. Problem number 7. Disease and sanitation collapse. Thousands of people on a ship with limited sanitation facilities. Bathrooms require power and water pressure to function. When those fail, toilets don't flush. Waste accumulates. With thousands of people and no working plumbing, the ship becomes a biohazard within days. Human waste, rotting food, decomposing corpses, both human and zombie. The smell is overwhelming. But worse, disease spreads. Cholera, dysentery, infections. You don't die from zombies. You die from drinking contaminated water or eating spoiled food or getting an infected cut that turns septic. The ship becomes a floating plague ship. Even if you somehow eliminate every zombie, the environment itself is killing you. Problem number 8. Other survivors become threats. Limited resources, limited safe spaces, desperation. What happens? People turn on each other. Factions form. Some people hoard supplies. Some try to take control of critical areas like the kitchens or medical facilities. Violence erupts over food, water, or safe sleeping spaces. You're not just fighting zombies. You're fighting other survivors who are desperate and scared and willing to do anything to stay alive. And unlike zombies, humans are intelligent. They plan, they ambush, they betray. That's often more dangerous than the mindless infected. Let's walk through the realistic timeline of what actually happens when a zombie outbreak starts on a cruise ship. Hours 0 to 12, the initial outbreak. Someone turns. Maybe in their cabin, maybe in a public area. They attack others. Panic spreads. The crew tries to respond, but they're unprepared. Security personnel aren't trained for this. They get overwhelmed. The infection spreads through the densest population areas. Dining rooms, pool decks, theaters. Within hours, hundreds are infected. Thousands are panicking. The ship descends into chaos. Survival rating: 7 out of 10 if you react immediately and find a defensible location. 4 out of 10 if you're in a crowded area. Hours 12 to 24, the spread and breakdown. The infection has spread throughout most of the ship. Zombies are on every deck. Survivors are scattered, hiding in cabins, locked in storage areas, trapped in sections of the ship. The crew is largely dead or turned. No one's operating the ship. It's drifting. Power is still on because generators are running on autopilot, but that won't last. Food is accessible, but reaching the kitchens means navigating zombie-infested corridors. Survival rating: 5 out of 10 if you've secured a good position with supplies. 2 out of 10 if you're isolated without resources. Days 2 to 7, the siege phase. Survivors who found defensible positions are under siege. Zombies roam the corridors. Any movement attracts attention. Supply runs are deadly. People die trying to reach food or water. Others die from injuries or illness with no medical care. The power starts failing intermittently. The ship is drifting without navigation. Some survivors try to launch lifeboats. Most attempts fail catastrophically. Survival rating: 3 out of 10. You're barely hanging on. Weeks 2 to 4, the death ship. Most survivors are dead. The ship is a floating graveyard. Power is gone. Water is gone. Food is rotted or depleted. The ship is drifting, possibly far from shipping lanes. Any remaining survivors are starving, dehydrated, and desperate. Some attempt to fish, but lack equipment or knowledge. Others resort to desperate measures, The zombies are still there, slower now, decomposing, but still deadly. Survival rating, 1 out of 10. If you're still alive, it's sheer luck. Beyond 1 month, if the ship hasn't been found and rescued, everyone is dead. Starvation, dehydration, disease, or zombies. The ship drifts as a ghost ship, filled with corpses, until it eventually runs aground, sinks, or is discovered. That's the realistic trajectory. Not months of relative safety, days to weeks before everyone dies. So how does a cruise ship compare to other survival locations? Cruise ship versus apartment building. The apartment has less supplies but isn't trapped in the middle of the ocean. You can leave an apartment. You can't leave a ship. The apartment is on land with potential rescue or evacuation routes. Advantage: apartment, because you have escape options. Cruise ship versus military base. The base has weapons, training, and fortifications. The ship has supplies and water, but no weapons and untrained passengers. The base has escape routes and sustainability. The ship has neither. Advantage: base, significantly. Cruise ship versus island. An island with resources, fresh water, and isolation is vastly superior. The island is stable. You can farm, hunt, fish. You can build sustainable shelter. The ship is temporary and deteriorating. Advantage: island, massively. Cruise ship versus shopping mall. The mall has supplies and fortifications but attracts crowds and has no water sustainability. The ship has water but is trapped. Both are terrible long-term. Slight advantage: mall, because at least you can leave. The cruise ship loses to almost every comparison. The isolation advantage is negated by being trapped. The supplies advantage is negated by the population density spreading infection. The mobility advantage is negated when you can't actually operate the ship. So if you find yourself on a cruise ship when a zombie outbreak starts, here's your actual survival strategy. React immediately. The moment you realize something is wrong, move. Don't wait for official announcements. Don't wait to see what happens. Get to a defensible position right now. Every second matters. Get weapons. Head to the kitchen and grab knives, meat cleavers, anything with a blade. Hit the maintenance areas for crowbars, wrenches, tools. The ship doesn't have guns, but it has improvised weapons. Arm yourself immediately. Secure a defensible position. Upper decks are better because zombies struggle with stairs. Find a section with limited access points, ideally near supplies. Lock doors. Barricade entrances. Create a safe zone you can hold. Gather critical supplies. Water, non-perishable food, first aid. Grab as much as you can carry to your safe zone. You won't be able to make supply runs later. Find other survivors, but be selective. A group of 5 to 10 capable people is ideal. Too few, and you can't defend effectively. Too many, and you deplete supplies too fast. Choose people who are calm, capable, and not panicking. Monitor for infection within your group. Anyone bitten or injured needs to be quarantined immediately. You cannot risk an internal outbreak. This is harsh, but it's necessary. Attempt to reach the bridge. If anyone in your group knows how to operate a ship, getting to the bridge and gaining control of navigation is critical. You need to steer toward land or a safe location. Drifting is death. Signal for rescue. Use flares, lights, radio equipment, anything to signal your position to potential rescuers. A cruise ship is visible. Someone might see it. Make sure they know there are survivors. Prepare to abandon ship if necessary. If the ship is going down or the zombie population is overwhelming your position, lifeboats are your last option. It's risky, but staying on a doomed ship is worse. And finally, be ready to make impossible decisions. Leave behind people who are infected. Kill someone who's been bitten. Abandon anyone who can't keep up. These decisions are brutal, but they're what keep you alive. Best case scenario? The outbreak happens while the ship is near port. The captain or surviving crew manages to beach the ship or get close enough to land that you can evacuate. Rescue forces arrive quickly because the ship was tracked. The infection is contained to part of the ship, and your group holds out in a secured area until rescue arrives. You survive with some casualties but avoid total wipeout. Survival rating, 6 out of 10. It's possible, but requires luck and quick action. Worst case scenario? The outbreak starts mid-ocean, days from any land. It spreads throughout the ship within hours. The crew is killed or turned. No one survives who can operate the ship. The power fails within days. Supplies run out. The ship drifts. No rescue comes because no one knows where the ship is. Everyone dies from starvation, dehydration, or zombies. The ship becomes a floating tomb. Survival rating, 0 out of 10. You're dead. So here's the final verdict on cruise ship survival during a zombie outbreak. Survival rating, 3 out of 10. The pros: isolation from mainland zombies, abundant initial supplies, freshwater generation while power lasts, defensible interior spaces if you act fast, potential visibility for rescue, and mobility if you can operate the ship. The cons: trapped with thousands of people in confined spaces, infection spreads rapidly with no escape. Designed for comfort, not defense, panic and chaos destroy organization. Nowhere to run when compromised. Infrastructure collapse without crew. The ocean itself becomes a threat, and disease and sanitation failures kill you. The bottom line: a cruise ship is a death trap during a zombie outbreak. The initial advantages are quickly overwhelmed by the population density, the inability to escape, and the rapid collapse of systems when the crew dies. Unless you're rescued within the first few days, you're dead. The smart move is to avoid cruise ships entirely during any kind of outbreak. If you're already on one when it starts, your only real chance is immediate evacuation before the infection spreads ship-wide. Once the ship is compromised, survival becomes a matter of pure luck, not skill or planning. So could you survive a zombie outbreak on a cruise ship? Maybe for a few days if you're smart, fast, and lucky. But long-term, no. The ship is a floating coffin. Beautiful, well-stocked, isolated, and utterly lethal. That's the survival theorem on cruise ships. They're not fortresses, they're traps. And the ocean doesn't care how many supplies you have when the ship goes dark and starts drifting. Subscribe for more tactical survival analysis. Next time we're examining whether airports are viable survival locations or just another death trap with extra baggage. We're also continuing our celebrity survival series and city breakdowns. Stay sharp, stay logical, and if there's ever an outbreak, stay off the cruise ships. Because the only thing worse than being trapped with zombies is being trapped with zombies in the middle of the ocean with no way out. Stay alive.